Augusta, Georgia for Nike EYBL. It's called Peach Jam. That's what they call it. But top high school players in the country.
Nice.
All transcend.
Wow. So like any NBA players or anything like that, do they get involved? Oh, wow.
Yeah, they all, well, not they all, but quite a few of them have AAU teams. Okay. So LeBron was there, his son's team was there. Carmelo, his son was there. CP3, or Chris Paul, he has his own team. Russell Westbrook has a team. Bradley Beal has a team. Kevin Durant has a team, and Blake Griffin have a team, but they weren't there.
They all have AAU teams? Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Is that like a standard thing? Like,
no, I mean, most of them played AAU ball for somebody. So, you know, once they got to a certain point, they started their own programs. So, and it's a lot of money in it. So,
wow.
You know.
So you were down there with, like, just what were you there for?
So
Nike, you said?
Ninth is actually an ambassador, like a life skills ambassador for Nike. I don't actually know his official title, but that's essentially what he does. So we've had a relationship with Nike for a while. A couple of years ago, went to something that they have for the top high school players in the country called Nike Academy. They used to do it in Thousand Oaks, California, but this year they're doing it in Portland. But we did a beat making class for the kids.
Yeah.
So we just talked. They ask us questions, you know, life stuff, not anything to do with basketball per se, but there's always a correlation between music and sports.
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
They use us for that type of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, hi, welcome. This is Life and Art with Nicole. If you're new or if you're just joining us, my name is Nicole. I'm the host. And I'm here today with my friend Kash. He is a producer and president of Jamla Records. We have a really exciting, really interesting episode coming up. We're going to talk about music and lots of different topics as far as music is concerned. And yeah, I mean, this is a podcast where we discuss different lifestyle topics such as books and acting, art, music, spirituality, health, wellness. So I'm super excited about the topics that we'll discuss today, and stay tuned. So you are president of Jamla Records.
I am.
And Jamla's based out of Raleigh.
Correct.
Has it always been based out of Raleigh?
Yeah. Ninth Wonder, Grammy Award winning producer, hip hop legend. Started the label back in, I want to say 2007, when I was an undergrad at NC State, but it became what you now know as Jamla Records probably in like 2010. That's when we moved into the studio we have now, called Bright Lady Studios. It's named after his fallen sister. She passed away when he was very young, but he named the studio after her. But we've been in that building for roughly 13 years. So, wow. Yeah.
So like, okay, so, because we went to undergrad together.
Correct.
And so was music it wasn't your degree or whatever, right?
No.
Well, what did you study?
I was a park and natural resource management major.
So wait, how did you get to music from that?
Well, I mean, I wanted to have a green job because that's what I was told was going to be a thing. I'm thinking I'm going to get out of college and work for the EPA. As you know, what happened in 2008, 2009, market crashed, like pretty much a recession, so there were no jobs. But my junior year, I actually was hanging out with a good friend of both of ours, Dennis McCarter of Cooley High. Yeah. He already had a relationship with Ninth, Rap, Marlena Evans. Rhapsody also had a relationship with Ninth, and I had a relationship with them. So I was introduced to Ninth then. I wasn't even making music then. Wow. So I started making music probably a year after I met Ninth. So it was just a situation where I was a fan of his music, the group he was in, Little Brother. I was a fan of just their whole movement, but it was just cool to go to the studio. At the time, it was at North Carolina Central University. We would go and just hang out. I got the bug. Dennis, professionally known as Synopsis, showed me his process on how he made beats, which he learned from Night. So I kind of got his process secondhand. I just kind of started dabbling.
That's awesome.
So that's literally how I got started producing.
So did you you just made some music for Ninth and he was like, hey, I
never played Ninth a beat of my own ever. Still to this day, I haven't.
He hasn't heard it.
No, not to say he hasn't heard it, but he heard it because someone else played it for him.
Oh, okay.
So I was just doing it for fun, like it was kind of a hobby. I was almost done with school. Like I really wasn't looking at music as a potential career at all.
Yeah.
But I did think it was fun. I thought it was cool, but I literally made beats in my dorm, and I would like give it to Sanab, or I would give it to some of the other people in Cooley High because they liked it.
Right.
But then Nike was working with a group at the time. They were all North Carolina Central students. It was a group by the name of M1 Platoon. Most of them were from the DMV, like Washington D.C. area. And I gave one of the guys a beat that he asked me for. I even had a fake MySpace page.
Wait.
Yeah.
Fake MySpace?
Meaning my name wasn't on it.
Oh, got it. It was
So
just
I had like a
page.
it was made up. So I used to put beats on there, but they all followed me. So one of the beats I posted, this kid, at the time he went by Arafat. His name is Vaughn. He asked me for one of the beats, so I gave it to him, not thinking much of it. And one day I came to the studio at Central, and Nike was sitting at the console on his BlackBerry that dates us. But Vaughn put the beat on because they were about to record over it. And I was sitting at the back of the room like, what's going on? And Nike kind of looked up, and he looked around, and he was like, whose beat is this? And they all pointed at me. And he was like, really? Like, all this time you've been coming up here, you never mentioned that you made music or whatever. And I was like, Kash don't make beats. And that actually started my stage name being Kash Don't Make Beats. But now people just call me Kash.
Yeah.
But it was literally that. Like somebody heard a beat, asked me for it, and played it for him.
Wow.
But I already had a relationship with him, but he didn't know I made music.
Isn't that crazy how like stuff like that happens? It's like it was meant for him to hear your music in order for, because through that is how you became like more involved in the scene, right?
Yeah, he started a production team called the Soul Council maybe like 2 years after that moment.
I remember that, yeah.
So at the time, there's a young lady that was like our admin at the label, and she was like, make sure you get all your publishing stuff set up. We're about to do this Ninth Wonder Opus album. He wanted us to basically have some type of sales history, right? So I was like, okay. And she was like, yeah, the Soul Council, that was the first time I had heard the name. And I was like, what is that? And she was like, the production team. And I was like, what are you talking about? So she had to tell me like, oh, it's you, Ninth, Amp, E. Jones for 10 at the time, Crisis. And I was like, oh, all right. Like, that's how I found out.
Wow.
So then, like, Ninth went into it deeper, like, every label, that we were fans of back in the day, right? Like Bad Boy, they had, Beats by the Pound. You had all these collectives, and they all had production teams. So he was like, well, in the spirit of hip hop, I want to have my own production team, and it kind of helps for Nike not to have to make all the beats himself.
Oh yeah, of course.
Kind of spread the workload across other people. So I was honored because I didn't necessarily think I was ready for that, right? But it thrust you into a world that basically creates the initiative to get better. And that's really what it was. Like I was around people that I looked up to musically, and the more I practiced, the better I got. But he basically was like, nah, like you already got it. You know what I mean? So he obviously is a huge influence, right, on your music.
Who else like that you saw or worked with would be like you would really credit a lot of your style? Well, not really style, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
I got you.
Yeah.
I would say early on, because everybody's influenced by somebody, right? But I was probably a mix between Ninth, Crisis, and the late great Jay Dilla. Like,
how would I know Jay Dilla? I don't think I recognize
Jay Dilla. Most people know his work, but not his name.
Yeah.
So he did a lot of early Common stuff.
Oh,
so like The Light.
Yeah.
That's Dilla. He did some stuff for Janet Jackson. Got Till It's Gone. That's Dilla.
Oh, I love that song.
He did what's it called? It's an Erykah Badu song. Didn't You Know?
Okay.
He did Didn't You Know?
Wow.
So he was in the Soul Aquarians. You had Q-Tip, Questlove.
So a lot of that like kind of soul, neo soul hip hop kind of.
That's a made up term, but yeah, for sure.
That blend.
That was my favorite genre at the time because I liked the textures, but you didn't lose the bottom from hip hop. Hip hop was very bass heavy.
Yeah.
But those sounds they just had very jovial chords. Like it was the craziest thing to me. But
like musical.
Yeah, very much so. So that was definitely my early influence. And of course, just anybody in the Soul Council, because you're around them so much, you hearing their stuff all the time, so you're unconsciously being influenced by it. But now, I feel like I'm kind of creating my own path.
Yeah.
Knife and I still kind of have some similar tastes when we pick samples, because obviously predominantly we use vinyl and all that good stuff. Same thing with Crisis. Like I've learned a lot from him too, just over the years, just his ear for just being able to pick the space, and find spaces in records. Like Crisis is really, really good at that. So
he's got a great ear.
Yeah. So I've learned a lot from all my brothers, to be honest. But now, after you do it for a while, you kind of just start doing your own thing.
Yeah.
So
okay, because as we are, as music is changing, because it's changing, right? A lot.
It always has.
And it always has. How do you feel about the way the music industry is like headed? Because obviously there are ebbs and flows in music, right? Like hip hop is totally different now than what it was in the beginning, you know, and that's a natural process, right? Do you think? And it's hard because you can't even say like, are we going in the right direction? But because we're going in a direction, it's a different direction than where we are now, right? But like, do you think that we're getting away from maybe the essence or the heart of what music, specifically hip hop, but music in general is?
So that's a very layered question.
It is. Sorry, we can break it down.
No, it's good. It's good. So the thing about what you just asked me, there's one word you used, it's industry. That changes the dynamic.
Yeah,
so
the business gets layered into it.
Right. So now, I wouldn't say that we're getting away from the essence. It's just what is marketed to the masses. That's the difference.
Yeah.
So late 80s, early 90s, there was a certain sound, and there were barriers to entry. Good, bad, or indifferent, however you felt about it, you had to go through a label for the most part to be heard. Now, anybody can go to DistroKid, some of these other sites, and your stuff's up on Apple, Tidal, Spotify in a week. And anybody can listen to your stuff.
SoundCloud, Bandcamp,
right.
all those places.
It's a lot of other platforms, right? And that's the thing too, like everybody has a platform. So it kind of levels the playing field, but not really.
Yeah.
Because if you go to Times Square, the person that just uploaded their song on Spotify is not the person that you see on that big jumbotron.
Yeah.
It's the person that has the resources, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that we're getting away from it. It's just you have to do a little bit more digging to get to what you really want to hear.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Because it's like on the one hand it's become industrialized, and on the other hand it's become so widespread that it's just like it's so much everywhere. And I had this exact same conversation with my last guest, who's an actor, because we're seeing the same thing in the film industry. There's so many platforms, so many streaming platforms, so many resources for individual creators to make their own content, and you can find it anywhere. You can go to Vimeo, you can go to YouTube, you can go to all these, and those are just the main ones. But there's so many different streaming places. Tubi, you know what I'm saying? And so it's the same in music, is what you're saying. You know, and it's the content is there. There might be like really incredible gems, but it's not only is it harder to find, but the ones that are being promoted or in the industry may or may not be the gems. It may be what the industry is pointing us in. And so then that kind of goes back to my question. So like, is the industry, how do you feel about the industry in its involvement in music? So
by and large, Jamla has been the anti-label. We're the anti-industry label, because we make the music we want to make, not the music that the industry says is the hot thing.
Yeah.
Right? So we do what we want to do, we do what we like to do, and our fans respond to that. And that's always been our claim to fame, right?
Yeah.
But when you get into the industry games, you're talking about millions upon millions of dollars being made off of artists, right? But the interesting part is, I mean, I'm not gonna say that the industry is dying, but it's definitely evolving to more of a, hey, y'all are the creatives, y'all tell us what's hot. As opposed to 20 years ago, they were saying, no, this is hot.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a reason why if you go to radio, there's a programmer. You're literally being programmed and told what to like. So if you lined up 10 people between the ages of 35 and 45, and asked them like, who's your favorite artist right now? You're probably gonna get 10 completely different answers from all different spectrums, right? The 45-year-old individual still remembers when you had to walk down to Sam Goody and buy the album, whereas the 35-year-old, we're in that weird cusp, because you know, that's like our age bracket essentially, right? Where I remember having to pause tapes. I remember buying my first Walkman. I remember buying my first CD player. I remember when it went to iTunes and the iPod was a thing. So I remember then, of course, a few years ago, it goes completely to streaming. And it's like, we watched it transform, but at the same time, my taste never shifted. But then I have people that are my age that are like, well, I don't want to think. Just tell me what's hot.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Interesting is the word you're gonna use. I think it's asinine, but whatever. If you like what you like, and my friends know I'm definitely a music snob. If you want to call me that, that's fine. But I like what I like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is what you do. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
so true.
And it's also like you do highly specialized work. So it's like you are going to be very particular about what you listen to and what you're influenced by, you know?
Exactly.
Whereas like in a world where you're right, like for the past however long, we've been programmed and told what to like. And so I think there are those people that are so used to that mindset, they don't know how to think for themselves. They're just like what you just said, tell me who to like, tell me who's hot and I'll listen to them, you know? And then they just fall right in line.
Yeah, playlisting.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's Spotify, Tidal, Apple saying this is what you need to listen to because these artists and these songs are great.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that because literally before I came here, because you know I'm now on Apple Podcasts, and I was looking at all the headlining podcasting, and I hadn't done this before because it's so interesting because I haven't really listened to podcasts, but I'm now doing podcasting. It's kind of funny. But I get the concept, and I've heard a couple people, a couple really great podcasts, and that's kind of what inspired me. But I haven't looked at the overall industry of podcasting. And I did that today. I went on Apple because I was trying to get like my everything set up for myself. And I was like scrolling through, and I was like, all these people are famous already. Like why does this, I don't want to name names, but I'm like, why does this person, they already have a TV show on Comedy Central. Why are they the headlining podcast? Is it because people still want to hear them? Like they don't get enough of them where they already are? Like what happens to all these other people who have a voice that want to say something? And how come I'm not seeing them on the main page? And so that's I guess I'm calling it the industrialized podcasting. And so we're seeing it with music, with film. It's in every industry. But
there's hope. So a lot of people, I'm not sure you heard, but like there's no hip hop record that's been #1 or in the top, I think 10 of Billboard this year.
Wow.
Which is like the first time in I don't know how long. And that to me signifies people are kind of tired of the same thing being pushed.
Yeah.
So it's a shelf life for certain things. That's why I say the more things change, the more they stay the same. So like Jamla, we evolve, but there are certain elements that make us Jamla, right? So Knife always says that music goes in like 20 to 30 year cycles. So if you turn your radio on right now, half of the music that you're listening to is sampling songs that we grew up listening to.
Right, like even Kanye sampling Shaka Khan, you know?
Right.
And
so that was roughly 20-ish years from when Shaka Khan dropped that song, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now we're hearing people sample Usher.
You're right. Oh my gosh, you're right.
So it's
That's
like
so weird because we grew up like listening to Usher, and now this like younger generation is sampling Usher. We're like, wait, we're not that old. Chill out. You
and
know?
10 years ago, Knife started sampling 90s music. Jodeci,
wow.
Mint Condition, SWV, and there's still some times where he'll dabble and grab a song from the 90s that's like, popular, but it's still a creative element to it. Like, you can't be lazy. You can't just take it and just
Right.
it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to me, that's lazy. And I guess that goes to the side of me that is a creative because I know the process. But as far as the industry goes, they have to adjust to what the fans want now. And that really wasn't the case before. Because if you put something out and it's not good, you're getting killed on social media.
Right.
That used to not be a thing. People just would not buy your stuff. Like, okay.
And I'm wondering now that you say that, because I had said this in previous episodes about, going to the comment section. And that's what I tend to do. I'll just, whatever it is that I'm looking at or listening to or reading, I go right to the comments. And I think the comment sections are in whatever, medium that you're looking at or viewing or listening to, your whatever, the comments are driving, like the people. It's no longer, what you're saying is like, it's no longer industry driving, it's the people driving it. And you're right, like you go through the comments on like a new YouTube video of some artist that did and they will just get ripped apart. And then they just, like the people are now having a larger say, which is such it's unique, like what's happening. I don't know how to, because I keep saying it's so interesting. I'm trying to like use a different word, but.
No, it is though. But for us, it's refreshing is the word I would use.
There you go. Yeah.
Because, 10 years ago, they told us we were crazy for
having an opinion about something, right?
Not even having an opinion, but trying to make the music we were making. Pushing a black woman. Like, that kept her clothes on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right. So it's a lot of things that you just got to stick to your guns and really understand why you're doing it. Now, do I knock the artist that doesn't necessarily know the history of hip hop, doesn't necessarily know their predecessors, doesn't necessarily care to push the culture forward? Look, if you're a young guy, young girl, you out here and you're successful, I'm not ever going to be mad at that, ever. But at the same time, there has to be balance. That's my thing. Like, you can have 5 different women that are all different at the same time.
Right.
But for whatever reason, in our minds, it's almost like we're pitting them against each other. And it's like, why is Cardi going against Nicki?
Right.
Like, y'all are both artists in your own right. Y'all are both successful in your own right. Like, why could it only be one? And then here comes Meg, you know? And it's like, oh, well, I like Meg. I don't really like what Cardi and Nicki are doing. And it's like, well, you don't have to like all of them, but respect them for what they do.
Right.
And then it's like, well, rap is here. And then you got Coyle Ray, you got Saweetie, and this, obviously this is just women, right? But you get on the male side, I can't even keep up.
Right. It's
like,
a new one every day.
It's a new one every day. And the thing for me is a lot of them aren't doing enough to separate themselves from the next. That's the part. So like,
it seems very cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like a formula works and it's like, oh, I can do that. And that's the thing Knife talks about a lot too. We all talk about it now, but like, I never listened to a song in the 90s and said, I can do that. Like, I mean, you make jewelry, right?
Yeah.
At one point, you had to sit down and try to make it to be like, okay, like this is a lot harder than I thought it was.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it takes a lot of time and effort to get good at it. But now, I'm hearing stuff and I'm like, that was the most basic rhyme scheme.
Winding freaking
now everybody's
auto-tune.
singing. They can't sing for real.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna get into male R&B because where are the men that sound like men?
Right.
Like, we had Johnny Gill. We had, well, we can't say his name, but y'all know who I'm talking about. I mean, we had Keith Sweat, we had Joe, we had Case.
Yeah.
They all sounded different, but they sounded like,
Yeah.
they all had a different tone to their voice. I mean, and I'm not saying they can't have high pitched voices, but like we had Ralph Tresvant. We had people that had a higher.
Yeah, Prince, Michael Jackson.
All of them had higher voices at times, but now it's like everybody's auto-tuned.
Right.
So you sound like a robot
You
more than you sound like a man singing.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So there's some women that do it too, but especially in the male R&B game.
I wonder if that's like by design because, as we are sort of our society is transitioning into a more like technology based and everything is like AI, because I want to get into the AI thing in a minute, but I'm wondering if that is an industry choice by design to make all the artists literally sound like robots so that by the time we get to the point where robots are doing everything for us, we can't tell the difference between a human and a robot. So it's almost training us. I don't know, this is speculation on my part, but
Then you get the jazz influence. Robot can't do jazz.
right. Can't do jazz.
Robert
I
Glasper.
don't think anyone can do jazz
Yeah,
for jazz people.
right. So it's like Robert Glasper sits down in front of a piano. Does he even know what he's gonna do? So how does AI predict that?
Right.
It's a human element to
a
it.
human spontaneity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a lot of that in what we consider the essence of hip hop.
Yeah.
There is a level of creativity that would be really, really hard to duplicate unless all the beats sound the same.
Right.
So that's where, you got people that really cut through, like your Knives, your Knots, your legends, your Dr. Dre's. Then you got a few, younger people like Hit Boy, like Soundtrack, who's under us. But like, you got a lot of very, very good producers that are pushing their sound, but are not trying to sound like what they hear on the radio. And there's nothing wrong with some of those beats. I'm not saying that, but there's a level of like, how do I tell this producer from this producer if y'all are using the exact same sounds? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So same sound, same formula, here you go.
Yeah.
And I've heard the argument, well, y'all did the same thing in the early 90s, which I wasn't doing it in the 90s. But in the 90s, 2000s, there was still a formula. Yes, there was somewhat of a formula, but that's why Dilla stands out. Because Dilla would take a folk record and sample it and turn it into a song that everybody loves.
Yeah.
Like Run It by Pharcyde. Like, that's like a Brazilian, like, nobody was doing that.
Yeah.
So that's the human element, because you can't predict what somebody would put down the needle. Because me and Ninth Crisis, whoever, we can listen to the same record and hear 8 different things.
Yeah.
So that part is very hard to make, into an artificial intelligent being.
Yeah.
But the voices, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, you can, because we're seeing it now,
Yeah,
like you can, because everyone
insane.
at some point has their voice recorded somewhere, and the AI is just picking up on it.
Being able to take someone's voice, like you said, and emulate phrases, how they inflect their voice, that is insane to me. I've heard quite a few remixes, like where people just took like Michael Jackson's voice and put it like with Biggie lyrics over, like that's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of things that we have to consider.
I know, and I've done some voiceover, and I've done some voiceover with like AI, and I did it for various reasons, and I'm actually kind of excited about that project. But it's interesting because I also had this conversation about how we are feeding the AI machine, and it's like, it's a fine line between, are we helping ourselves or are we going to be ultimately hurting ourselves? And this is across the board in whatever that we're doing, right? And so in the case of music, it's like, are we sort of training this system to make us obsolete as artists. But obviously what you just said, there is the AI, no matter how advanced it becomes, it will never have that human spark. It'll never have that zest or whatever it is that that soul that we give it.
Yeah.
Because, and I think that's actually why, Jamla, it will last for a really long time and will sort of like stay relevant and will even almost surpass these sort of cookie cutter artists that just, they keep, churning out, because there's that soul, and it doesn't matter how much technology we have, humans will always crave that,
Yep.
But it is scary, the direction that we're going with AI, and do you see the music industry sort of like changing, like to accommodate or like to,
It'll have to, the industry will have to adjust. It always has to adjust to whatever new technology is available, right? But the creatives don't have to. And that's truly my stance on that. Like, the industry will have to adjust because we're talking about licensing, ownership,
right,
things like that. The business part of it, you have to adjust that. Like, there has to be something in place legally that says this is okay and this is not okay.
Yeah.
This is a line in the sand that we have to draw. But as a creative, we're always going to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. But when you take the instruments out of those schools in the Bronx, they start using turntables as instruments.
Oh, wow.
It's the same. Yeah. It's the same thing. So if you give the technology or you take something away and give us something else, we're going to make something out of it, right? So there's going to be some things that creatives are going to be able to do to circumvent this AI thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what that thing is yet, but I know just based off of how we create, the soul with which we create, it won't be an issue. I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Do you? Because it's interesting. Like AI can do a lot, right? It can write whole, partnership agreements and stuff, and like music is, writing music. And I it's funny because in high school, I used to I used to listen to like Lil Kim and stuff like that. So I would be like, oh, let me try like and write some rap lyrics, and I used to write, and it's like, it's poetry, at the end of the day, and with some extra in there. But like, if AI can learn to be a poet, right? Could AI be writing some of these songs that are out there now? And will people be able to pick up on that? Like, I don't know who wrote that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it sound like it sounds like a computer wrote that.
But I'll ask you, when you listen to music now, do you know who wrote it?
No. And is it usually like multiple writers anyway?
It depends.
Yeah.
It depends on the artist. So, some songs you'll look at, if you were to read the credits, you might see 5 names.
Yeah.
Some songs you'll see 1 name. Some you'll see 2. So it just depends on the artist, and it depends on the record too, because every song is its own piece of property, if you want to look at it like that. Yeah. So you got some artists that write their own stuff. You got some artists that don't write anything for themselves.
Wow.
And then most people fall somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about like R&B artists. Rappers, for the most part, are writing their own stuff.
Yeah.
We got a few examples of rappers not writing their own.
Yeah, like there's one rapper, I think he's based out of Charlotte, very popular rapper, and one of his very popular songs was written by like 6 different writers or something like that. And it was a very easy song, and I was like, why did it take so many people to write that?
And I mean, I did, I'm in my administrative role. Sometimes I see these producer agreements, and it's like, there's 4 people on this producer agreement. It took 4 people to make that. And it's like
produce the beats or
make 1 beat. There's 4 names on there.
Oh wow!
And I'm not talking about like, oh, we got to give the sample credit. No, we're talking about the people that actually made the beat. And I'm like, what? Like, you got somebody over there playing drums? You got somebody doing hi-hats? Like, what? Like, how are you doing this?
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
More than 2 people on a beat is probably too much, unless you got musicians. So that's
like
different.
An orchestra or something like that.
But even that, you would list that differently. You know what I mean? Because you got work for hire. You would give them like keyboard credit or guitar or bass. Like, you could list them differently.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say You're not gonna ever see a beat and it says produced by Ninth Crisis, Cash, and E. It's never gonna say that. So it's.
You're right. It sounds like a little ridiculous to have that many people on
4 names.
Yeah.
Like what were y'all doing in there? Like, I don't know, but but to your point, AI could potentially write a song.
Yeah, it probably is already.
Maybe, but we wouldn't know.
Yeah.
It's the performance piece that's gonna sell it. Because if AI writes a song and Rihanna performs it, who cares?
Yeah, and it wouldn't matter, right?
They wouldn't
because
care.
she'll put her own spin on it.
They would just love the fact that Rihanna gave us a new song.
Yeah. Okay, you were at the Grammys this past year, right? Did you go this past year?
I didn't go this year.
Okay, you didn't.
Last year.
You went last. Who performed last year? Do you remember? So how is that? How does the Grammys even work? Like, do you get you go with Rhapsody, right? Usually.
Yeah, I mean, well, let me clarify. Usually, I'm in LA for Grammy week.
Okay, doing
so like rap will go. I've never wanted to go, to be honest. Like the actual ceremony, no, that's a lot of pump of circumstance. You got to spend thousands of dollars to walk the red carpet, not to walk on it, but
to get
you have
dressed
to look
up, right?
away.
Sure.
So, it's a lot of pomp and circumstance, and a lot of people question why artists care so much, but it is a validation in a sense, right? All the artists that we look up to, the legends, they got Grammys. I would say most of them. But the being there part, being in LA during the Grammys, there is an energy there. Like everybody just comes down. Like the music industry comes down on LA. It was in New York one year. When rap was nominated for Layla's Wisdom, that year was actually in New York.
Oh, cool.
Very cold. I don't know whose idea that was. Because the Grammys is always in like February. So February in New York versus February in Los Angeles
totally
is very different. But energy wise, like it's nothing like it. The parties, the meet and greets, the pop-ups, like the gifting suites.
Yeah.
Whether I go to the award show or not, I'm trying to get some of that.
Let me get
let me get some of those beat headphones. Yeah, I'll take some of those. Thank you. But no, I mean it's for an artist to work for countless years, some of them, to get to that point. It's a very important part of their story. So some artists say they don't care. I hear you. But if you got nominated by the Grammy board, you would go.
Yeah.
You would be there. The Academy sends you that little letter in the mail, you going.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same with actors, right? If you get nominated for an Academy Award, you're gonna be there.
Exactly.
Unless you're on set, like in another country, something like that.
Right, like work prevented you from going or some other, circumstance. But as an artist, of course, you want to be validated. But, there are other award shows that are more, and I'm assuming it's similar in the acting world where it's more of your peers saying, oh, you're great.
Oh, yeah.
You did something really, really good here. And that's something that I feel like we probably should celebrate more too.
Sure.
The Grammys is going to be the Grammys. Just historically, it's been a thing. But, Billboard, I don't really care about the Billboard Awards because the Billboard Awards just tells me that your song was popular.
Right.
It doesn't mean it was good.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. It means it was popular. Popular and good mean two different things to me. Because you have artists that have charted countless times. And I listen to their music and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
If you say so. But, sometimes, and I do think in years past, like recent history, the Grammys is, at least for the hip hop category, they've tried to get a little bit more diverse. Right, so that's how you see a Tyler the Creator win. A Nas get nominated multiple times. Rap get nominated. Even her being nominated, creating the body of work that she created. Like the year that Jay-Z dropped 444, Kendrick dropped Damn. Like those are some incredible albums to be up against.
Yeah,
right.
Category.
So, I think the Grammys, at least on the hip hop side, and I guess somewhat on the R&B side too, they're being more aware of what the people are saying about the Recording Academy. Because historically, I looked at the Grammys almost like a popularity contest too, in a sense.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not saying that your Migos culture, because they were also nominated that year, they need to be represented. That album was very important to the culture of hip hop. Whether I knew all the songs back before, no, I knew a few of them though. I ain't gonna lie, I like a few of them songs.
Yeah.
But, and then you meet these artists and they're just super cool, super humble. Migos is one of them, because rapping, Migos actually had the same booking agent. So they used to be at a lot of events together.
That's cool.
But just, meeting some of these people that you wouldn't necessarily think would ever be in the same category, I think it's cool. I've heard people clamor that we should have subgenres. I'm not saying we shouldn't.
Wait, so subgenres like within
Hip hop.
Oh, like
Think
neo hip hop?
Think about it. Out of all the other genres,
Yeah. There should be. Why is
we don't really have them yet.
Wow.
So, I think
I thought that there was.
No.
That's so weird that
No, because one year you gotta think I just said it. Like, you think Migos and Rhapsody would ever be in the same category?
No, because
if you listen to their music,
totally different.
It's like, but it's all hip hop.
Yeah.
Technically. But if you wanted to say, I don't know, best trap album.
Yeah.
Versus best, I don't know, alternative hip hop. I'm like, I don't know what the subgenre would be. But rock has them.
Right, they've got heavy metal, death metal, like what? Light metal? I don't know.
Bluegrass. You got all this.
Oh yeah. Wow.
You got all these subgenres of music, but for whatever reason, hip hop is just hip hop, and it's all thrown into one big bowl. And I'm not saying that it's not all hip hop, because all that stuff is rock that you just named. But there's a big difference between Incubus and Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
And Aerosmith.
Yeah.
And the Stones.
Korn.
Right.
Remember
That's
Korn?
a big difference. That's a big gap.
Yeah.
So, Nickelback, people like that, it's all rock, but they have subgenres.
Yeah.
So they're competing against people that would make similar music to what they make. You know what I mean? So I think it's worth exploring.
Yeah.
I don't know, I got some friends in the recording academy.
So there you go. So if the Grammys and the Billboards are sort of like the industry, whatever, what would be the peer award show for music? Like in the case of acting, it would be like the SAG Awards. Obviously you have all the film festivals and whatnot, but so what would it like? That would
it used to be like Soul Train.
Oh, that's right.
Soul Train was a good one. Like, if you watch the Soul Train Awards, they cared.
Yeah.
They cared about representation, whether you did this type of music or this type of music or this type of music. You saw all those things represented, right? And even then, like recently, they started doing like soul ciphers. I don't know if you knew about that, but like they would have soul singers and artists getting a cipher, essentially like a hip hop artist.
Oh my goodness.
But they might choose a beat like, what's a good one? My Lady by D'Angelo.
Okay.
They would take the beat and take 3 or 4 different artists and they would all have their own version.
Like they would sing it.
They would sing something different over the beat.
Oh my god.
But it's fine.
Cool, yeah.
I have to send you a link.
Yeah, send that to me. That's really
it's
cool.
one from the UK too, where they had the UK artists singing over it, like Jack James and a few other people.
Yeah.
But
that's cool.
Yeah. And we probably need like BET and BET Hip Hop Awards. I feel like that's 2 different things. BET Awards and BET Hip Hop Awards. Same network, but 2 different shows. That could be that if they treated it like that. But there's been times where I kind of looked at the BET Awards similarly. Like, it's a popularity contest. Like, they're not going to put a lesser known artist up there with Nicki or up there with Jay-Z. Like, you're probably gonna see Drake. You could probably guess the names. It's Khaled. Khaled's album's gonna be nominated. No disrespect, because Khaled is great. Like, I think he's an awesome human. He's hilarious too, by the way.
I saw him in Vegas one time. Well, I didn't meet him or anything, but he was like, we were walking kind of near each other in the Venetian, and I was like, it's DJ Khaled.
Yeah, but great guy. Like, but also, what he does is very, very important.
Yeah.
He brings a lot of different artists together.
Yeah.
Like, it's something to be said about that. Yeah. So, but it needs to be a space for us to really celebrate all stewards of hip hop. Like, the people that are really doing great shit should get that platform. I just believe that to be the case. So, you know.
Do you think like a streaming platform would be necessary for something like maybe just like a platform that's specifically designed for hip hop music, you know? Or are you thinking more like award show or some type of ceremony to celebrate these artists?
So,
or both, you know?
That's interesting that you say that, because I think the streaming platforms drive who's on the award shows. So when they sit in these meetings, like, you know, it's analytics. It's all about analytics now. So if I'm a board member for Target, I live in Minneapolis, that's where Target's headquartered, right? Do I know about the artists down in Atlanta making the new hot thing? No, I get my analytics person to come in the marketing team that says, well, this artist is trending really well in the market that we're trying to get into. They take the numbers from Tidal, Spotify, wherever they're pulling those numbers from. That's how that artist gets that paid partnership. So if, let's say, Nicole, you're an R&B act, right? And you're trending really, really well in the Pacific Northwest. I got a company that's not really doing well out there. How do I get those people to buy into my product? I take you and I say, hey, look, I'll give you $150,000 to do this promotion. It's gonna make me $1 million, maybe $2 million. But I'll give you 150 because I know that market loves you. So whatever you do, they're gonna subscribe to it. And then all I have to do is get 2 or 3 people to click. My marketing team does the rest. So that's how it works. So when you start looking at these award shows, it's not by accident. They know who's popular. They're not going off of just straight, oh, I love this artist. Not saying everybody, because Revolt does that. Revolt is good about that. I forgot about Revolt. Revolt is a network, you know, Puffy owns Revolt. So, but there are people in these rooms that are banging on the table like, no, we need more representation. But, you know, before, BET was owned by Viacom.
Right.
Viacom is about that dollar. So they're looking at the bottom line. And they're like, well, that's cool. But right here it says Drake is the #1 artist. So we need to make sure we get him on something. Like they even went so far, we love Beyonce, but Beyonce had a pre-recorded performance on the BET Awards one year. I was like, is she on tour? She was like in the overseas. She recorded a performance and they played it during the BET Awards. And I was like, so it wasn't any other artist.
No one else you could
get. You could have got, like, you know, and I love Beyonce. She deserves all her flowers, but that was crazy to me. So, you know,
and disappointing for other artists, you know, because it's like, there are so many. And it's,
great ones too. Like really, really good artists that deserve that platform. Like, I'm glad her is starting to get her just
right. I kind of became a fan of hers before her, and like kind of before she kind of got big, and her voice is just incredible.
She's an incredible artist.
Yeah,
though.
Great performer.
She plays piano. She plays guitar.
The guitar, I was so impressed.
Yeah, she's good. Her and Rap had a song together, and I met her. That was what, 2018. Yeah, and they did a performance for like IBM Watson or something like that. It was crazy. Like, speaking of technology.
Oh, wow.
The Watson, somebody put in keywords, I forgot what they were, but it was like soul and authentic and something, and it matched Rhapsody and her.
Wow.
And they did the song, and then they performed it in front of a crowd for IBM Watson. They had like a panel, they talked about it, and then they performed together. It was dope. That's how you use technology. For me.
Right, and that would be smart, you know, to use it in that way to bring different artists from different genres together to like mix the sounds. I could see AI, you know, really excelling in that.
For sure.
You know, in that area, but it's like, I don't know. There's like a lot on that subject, because it's like it's new territory that we're going into, and I was just like was curious to see, you know, how, you know, from the music side, how if artists were nervous or worried, you know, because, you know, with the you know, AI being able to replicate voices, AI being able to write the music, you know, it's like, you know, because voice actors are worried. Actors are worried.
It should be.
Writers are worried. That's why the writer's strike, one of the reasons why the writer's strike is happening. Because these big networks, well, one, they're not paying the writers.
Right.
But two, the reason why they're not paying the writers is because they don't have to pay the writers, because they can get AI to do the writing, or what they think they can do. That's the reason why.
Not the same.
I know, but this is the reason why Disney and all these big companies have been laying off thousands of employees at a time, because they're like, I don't need that copywriter anymore. Just get AI to do it. So it's like, it's really a weird thing that's happening that we're all in the midst of. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's crazy to watch.
We've seen this movie before.
Yeah.
And that's my brother and I, we talk about that. Like, they put it in the movies.
Yeah.
They put it in the art.
Like iRobot.
Yeah, they put it out there. Like, okay. What's the other one?
Terminator.
Yeah, Terminator from the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, they've been warning us, like, hey, this is happening.
Yeah.
This thing is coming.
Yeah.
But it's like, we, as humans, we have to, find, like you said earlier, find that balance between, like, pushing forward and, like, still remembering what makes us human. Like, there are certain things, yes, I think AI is great for. Technology in general is great for. Like, we have certain creature comforts that we never had before.
Yeah.
But when you start messing with people's livelihoods, right? Like, even completely unrelated to music, like, how many people go to school now to learn a trade?
Right.
How many mechanics do we have? How many HVAC, electricians,
plumbers.
Right? So those are like dying. When you're always gonna need those people.
Yeah.
Because you're not gonna have robots coming in your house like fixing. Well, at least not right now. But
I know, right?
Yeah, maybe in 20 years, who knows? But it's interesting because now it's like, oh, you can go online and become an internet or IT professional in 3 months, and you can get a top paying career. And it's like, yeah, we're coding, we're understanding what that language is, but we still need people to do
we still need people
stuff.
to pave the roads so we can drive to wherever we're at, to the grocery store.
Yes.
And it's I'm glad you brought that up, because when I worked for a construction company for a couple of years. And I had to do a lot of like the human resources type stuff, so like hiring and everything that had to do with basically dealing with the workers, dealing with subcontractors, payroll, all that. Yeah, you knew this. And what I was finding is when I was, trying to recruit people for, construction, like the positions, these guys, and it's wild, because it used to be like, so it was difficult to not find people, or it was easy to find people, is what I'm trying to say. It got to the point, and this was just like, a year and a half ago, I started noticing this, but, there was no interest in anything to do with construction. So paving the sides of the roads, or, dealing with the, whatever it was. The heavy machinery, operating the heavy machinery. And I'm like, how are we going to sustain ourselves as a society if people don't know how to do that? It got to the point where, I'd reach out to these schools where they would train people, and they were like, our graduating class was so small this year. And we're trying to find people, we're trying to incentivize people to go into into these trades. And so it's like a whole thing that's happening. Less and less people are learning these trades. We're training the AI to do shit for us, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, I don't know. It's weird. And so I think that's like another reason why I wanted to really start this podcast, is because I want to give a space for creatives to come on and talk about these issues, and talk about the things that are important to us as humans, and being a creative, being able to create, and being able to have that soul, our unique, spirit that we put into things. Like, that's important, and we can't lose that,
I don't think we will.
I don't think we will. You gave me hope. Seriously, like in this conversation, like just with Jamla and like what you guys are doing, it just seems like you don't even care what the industry is. It's like they're its own thing. You guys are gonna stick to the essence of music, and that's important, you know.
The musicality. The biggest ego in the room always has to be the music. Always. So that's why I love, my LA folks, because anywhere you go in LA, oh yeah, this person used to play bass for Prince, or this person used to play saxophone for that, like Terrace Martin, like all these people that we know, like Thundercat, like they're all great musicians. And then they form like Voltron, and they create a group called Dinner Party. And I'm like, what is going on? Like Ninth, Kamasi Washington, Terrace Martin, and Robert Glasper. How the hell did y'all do that?
Wow.
But that musicality piece, there is something to be said about that, because as you know, music is the universal language.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you're from. You can go almost to any corner of the world. If you press play, it's like it almost puts you in a trance, which is why music is so powerful and why we have to be so careful with it, the business of it and what we put out there, because it literally affects your mood.
Yeah.
Like, how you treat people. Like there's certain chords you can play that make people feel sad. Like the frequency, like it's a lot. We ain't got time for all that.
I know. I was literally going to say, you're going to have to come on. You're going to come on again, and we're going to get into that.
Yeah,
because
that's a lot.
Yeah, because I definitely want to delve into that in future episodes, because, the frequency aspect, like playing certain chords, like you just said, and how it changes the mood. I mean, that's we could talk for hours on that.
Correct.
But I mean, this has been so great, and I think I think we said a lot on these particular topics. So, but thanks so much for joining us. Once again, this is Life and Art with Nicole, and I'm here with my friend Kash. And if you want to go ahead and give your handle, so they can follow you.
You can find me on Instagram at Kash with a K, ASHDNTMKE.
Okay.
That's not it.
Louise. That's not it.
That's not it. It's actually Kash Don't Make Me on Instagram. So at KASHDONTMAKEME. On Twitter, it's Kash DNTMKEBEATS.
Okay.
That's what I was confused.
The Kash Don't Make Beats.
It's Kash Don't Make Beats, but you take out the O and the A.
Gotcha.
So KASHDNTMKEBEATS.
Cool. And then any websites or anything you want to mention?
Oh, just www.jamlarecords.com, www.blackjedizulu.com. That's a nonprofit organization that I'm a part of as well. So a lot of hip hop, a lot of arts things on there, dance. One of our members has her own art gallery in Annapolis. So
wow,
all great stuff there.
Awesome. So so make sure to check it out. And thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you in the next episode.